Have you ever wanted to travel to Sweden, Norway, or other countries in Scandinavia? You want to learn more about the travel industry? Then you've come to the right place. Want to welcome to the Outmarket.pro podcast, Amy Sterlicchi, and she is a travel specialist, Nordic Experience Specialist, no less, with Discover Scandinavia Tours. In her role, Amy works with clients to help them design a personalized Scandinavian vacation they'll remember for years to come. Welcome to the Outmarket.pro podcast, Amy.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Great. So you're located in Tampa Bay, right?
I am. I'm in sunny St. Petersburg, Florida.
Great. I can't see how you have the motivation to travel anywhere when we live in paradise, but other people would like to, and I'm sure you serve people from all over the country and probably other countries as well. So
Yes.
talk about the origin of this work for you. What turned you on to it, and talk a little bit about your background.
Sure. So my background has always been in hospitality and tourism. So I went to school for that in Orlando at the Rosen College of Hospitality Management. I always knew that I loved traveling and I loved meeting new people and I wanted to see this great big world. So I turned that into a career. And I worked for Marriott for many years in both their corporate offices and then also on property. And I got to go abroad with Marriott for a few years as well. I have done charters in the British Virgin Islands, planning those trips, selling those types of vacations. I've also done some event planning, keeping in that hospitality realm. I really like diving into niche markets. So I liked working at boutique hotels. I liked doing the charters in the British Virgin Islands, and I'm enjoying now doing trips to Scandinavia. So I don't do all kinds of travel and tourism, though, or that types of trips, though I do know people who can get you anywhere. I stick to what I know best right now, which is Scandinavia, and I'm really enjoying it.
Great. By the way, let me interrupt just a second. My lighting is terrible today. I look like a Smurf. I look so green. So I'll mention it and then I'll forget about it. Like if you're doing a presentation and you forget your belt, you're not okay until you say, I know I forgot my belt. So I know that I'm green today and I'll be Papa Smurf, the podcast host. But so let's move on. So what fascinates you with Scandinavia and led you to focus on this? Not that you might not spread your focus or divert your focus some other time in the future, but why Scandinavia?
Scandinavia for me was so exciting here now because I didn't have a whole lot of experience with it before starting in this role. So it was a mystery to me. I knew a lot before joining about Iceland because they've got fantastic marketing, and so their tourism has definitely skyrocketed. And I knew about some things in like Norway, Finland have the Finnish Lapland, Santa Claus. I knew little sprinkles of information, but I was very curious. There's, a lot of people know more about going for a London trip or a trip to Paris, somewhere in Italy. But Scandinavia seemed more mysterious and really piqued my interest. And now that I know more about it, and I know more about the volcanoes and glaciers in Iceland, and I know more about the fjords and the Lapland Arctic areas of Norway and Finland, and more about the cuisine, new Nordic cuisine scene, now I'm even more interested. So I was just intrigued by the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot more to see and do.
No pun intended, I guess.
Of course not.
So I have a friend who recently traveled to Iceland, and it's probably going to get easier to travel there but maybe less desirable as the climate continues to warm, because they're losing a lot of their ice and a lot of the things that probably draws people there. I don't hear that so much about the other part of Scandinavia. And I don't even think of Iceland as Scandinavia, but I guess they're pairing up or grouping up. But one of the things he mentioned was how expensive everything was in Iceland. Are they on the euro? And he didn't go to the other parts, but speak to that, the value of Iceland, and maybe go ahead and compare it to some of the other European places in Scandinavia.
Certainly. So the Iceland is on its own currency. They're not on the euro or any other shared currency. So they're on their own currency. And with the influx of tourism to Iceland and it being an island, so resources being, that not every, a lot has to be shipped in there. Prices are higher to go to Iceland than many other European destinations. So the cost of food and accommodation and transportation, excursions can be a little higher than if you were going on a trip to, say, Greece or Italy. You can expect a higher price tag on your Iceland trip, but you can also expect a very unique experience on your Iceland trip, one that isn't duplicated anywhere else. Iceland falls where there's two tectonic plates that rub together. And that's what has created a lot of the land formations that they have there. There's a fissure in between the two tectonic plates that you can snorkel and dive through. And then there's the volcanoes that have gone up and created little islands around the main island. There's the glaciers that are slowly coming across that have created beautiful waterfalls and rivers, ice caves that you can go into. And that's not the kind of thing you can see
Hold on a
everywhere.
second. I think you've got some visuals for us. Why don't you bring that up as we're talking about it? And you're giving beautiful descriptions, but let's show and tell.
Yeah, let me pull that up here for you. Let's see, share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen here now?
Yes.
So, there's a lot to see and do in Iceland, and a lot of it's got to do with the nature. I'm looking at this waterfall that we have here. You can actually go on a trail coming behind the waterfall. So you're standing in front of a rock formation with water crashing down in front of you, and then open landscape and sunset or sunrise in front of you. Here are some of those beautiful, it's like waterfalls that go down into rivers. Iceland is also known for being very artistic. There's a lot of quirky people up there, and so you'll find a lot of colorful buildings in the city center in Reykjavik. The streets are painted multicolored. And then I think of another image here. These are these basalt stone rock formations that are just falling off the side cliffs, from some of these places, and the black sand beaches you can see here as well. I don't have an image of it easily accessible here, but there is a black sand beach that they call Diamond Beach because it actually has big chunks of glacier that have broken off sea, and then they float in. So you've got this beautiful black beach that has these large diamond, crystal looking thing all over. It's jaw-dropping. I think I did kind of go through some of those pictures a little quickly. I'll just sort of bring them up here again.
So sounds like ecotourism is a focus of theirs.
It is, yes. There's a lot of ecotourism there. They do a lot to work with nature using the power from the geothermic energy that they have, all the hot springs, creating greenhouses to do some farming that they would otherwise not be able to do there. The sidewalks in Reykjavik are all heated from underground so that during the winter time the snow melts and you can walk and drive around more easily. There is some very fascinating ways that they have learned to work with their resources that you can learn about when you go.
Okay. Obviously, well, not so obviously now with global warming, but what are the times of the year that you want to go there and not go there?
So popular times to go are in the summertime when you've got the midnight sun. So very long days. The sun doesn't set all the way, which gives you more time for activities. We certainly suggest you bring eye masks with you to sleep. And the other time of year to go is going to be in the heart of winter, because there are so many wintry activities to do, including opportunities to see the northern lights. I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a bad time to go, but there are more popular times to be there. Most popular is going to be in the summer from late June, July, and August. So if you were to get there before or after, you'd still get longer days, but maybe a little less crowds, and maybe late May, end of August, September time. And then in the heart of winter, winter is awesome and less popular. So you'd have less crowds that time of year, but still lots to do and see.
How about rates? Do they vary with the seasons?
Throughout all of Scandinavia, you'll find that the rates are highest in the summertime.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that some flights to Europe stop over in Iceland. So if that's true, that could be a way to maybe build in a stopover there on your way to other Scandinavian countries. Am I accurate there?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. So Iceland Air actually offer you can do a connecting flight through Keflavik, which is the main airport in Iceland. And they'll allow you to add, I think it's 3 or 4 nights, a layover there without charging you any difference in price for that connection to your destination in Europe. And so that provides for a great long weekend stopover in Iceland. And while there is so much to see and do throughout Iceland, if you're staying for just that amount of time, you may just want to stay in the heart of Reykjavik and do some excursions out of the city. And so that's very possible to do. You can enjoy yourself and see a lot in just a short time there.
You seem pretty high on it, on Iceland.
I do love Iceland. Yes, I know. I get excited when I talk about it because there's a lot to be excited about. I have a fondness for the geothermic spas that they have there, which are their hot springs. They've got some that are more man-made and touristy, like the Blue Lagoon, which is one people have heard about a lot. It is more of a tourist attraction, but they do such a great job at it. It's still worth seeing. And then they've got more nature-based ones that are sort of outside of the city. And those provide a really peaceful, relaxing environment that they're worth going to as well. I love so many different parts of it. I could keep going.
Okay. Well, let's don't though. Let's move on
Sure.
and to some other countries. But we've done a nice little stopover in Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to your next favorite country over in Europe, the European Scandinavia.
Mm-hmm. So next up, I would say Norway.
And one of the things that I know about Norway, because I'm a Tesla fan, is that they have really embraced electric vehicles. And in fact, I believe they sell more electric vehicles than they do internal combustion engine vehicles. And they may have the highest per capita use of electric vehicles. I think in the world, I think they're leading in that area. So I'll just mention that tidbit. It's probably not part of your itinerary to go to Tesla charging stations, but talk to us about what appeals to you and what appeals to your clients about Norway.
Certainly. So I'll expand on that, and I will just say about the electric vehicles, those statistics and that information you provided really lines up with my experience there. So most recently I was in Oslo in April, a few months back, and I could not believe how many Teslas I saw around. It was, Tesla land for sure. So they're big on staying green and taking care of the environment. Fun fact, while I was in Oslo, I learned on this occasion that while there are streets above ground in the capital of Oslo, their main thoroughfares are actually underground. So you'll find that it's a very pedestrian-friendly city and very well manicured. So easy to get around, not high traffic, and very pedestrian-friendly.
And helps during the winter time for sure.
It certainly does. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You know, I traveled to Quebec quite a few years ago, and that struck me about Quebec, that there was a lot underground, multi stories underground, and lots of shopping for you to get in between going from building to building.
So you're not having to brace the cold anytime you want to
Yeah,
shop, in a different store.
and you could go right from these underground tunnels, I guess you will, into the subway. So you never had to go above ground depending on where you were going. So is that similar, that there are lots of shops in these underground areas of Oslo?
So not that they have the shops and pedestrian walkways underground. That's not as common. Really just the roadways. So
Oh,
the high
okay.
traffic roads, those are all underground.
Okay. I
Yeah.
misunderstood. Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead with your highlight reel.
Yeah, so I would say so. When people think of Norway, one of the first things that they think of are the fjords.
Right.
So the fjords are these beautiful landscapes where the mountain, as high up as the mountains go up above water, they go that far down below the water. And so you have these waterways that just have gorgeous cliffs and mountains up on either side of you. They're dotted in a few different places along the coastline and then inland a bit in Norway. So there's a lot of different opportunities to get to see the fjords. But if you go to Norway and you don't see a fjord, have you really been to Norway? I don't know. It's the land of the fjords. So
Are there cruises, day cruises, and are there overnight cruises along the Norway coastline?
yes, yes, and yes, all of the above. So
Okay.
there's opportunities for you to stay in a city or one of the villages that are along the fjords and take day trips up and down them. Or on one of our itineraries, we have a rib boat tour. So it's a fast-paced boat that gets to get along up close to the edge of the fjords and down some of the more narrow fingers of the fjords that a bigger ferry ship wouldn't have been able to go down. And then there are also overnight cruises. Norway has a lot of coastline, and so some of these overnight ferries will actually take you up along the coast of Norway from bottom to top, or just for little sections in between if you like. So all of the above, lots of ways to get on the water in Norway.
Cool. And are there cruises during the winter too?
There are cruises during the winter, yes.
Okay, so you can see the snowfall and all that.
Certainly. Yep, all year round. They're used to it, so they've figured out how to live with it and thrive with all the different kinds of weather that they get.
Probably 12 hot tubs on the decks of those cruise ships that are going in the wintertime in Norway.
Yeah, it's definitely very cool to be in a hot tub while it's snowing. So
I've done that. Not in Norway. All right. What
Mhm.
else about Norway?
So yeah, so I'm just showing you here. This is the opera house that they have in the capital in Oslo, and Oslo is right on a harbor, so it's right on the water, and you can actually climb up the roof of this opera house, and the whole opera house itself is glass. So as you walk around it, you can see everybody who's working inside of it, working on the costumes, working on the stage, props, all of that. And Oslo itself is a small capital city compared to especially the capitals that we're used to here in the US. So easy to get around and lots to see. Oslo also, let me just show you here. This is a picture of one of the fjords. So you can actually see just how vast those mountains are going up either side of it. And it's wild to know that as tall as they are, that's how deep the water is below you as well.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. In the winter time, half of Norway is, or a portion of Norway is above the Arctic Circle. So in the winter time, there's the opportunity to see the Northern Lights. There's the opportunity to do dog sledding, reindeer sledding, and something else that's prominent in Norway are the Sami people. So they are the indigenous people from the Lapland area, which is that above the Arctic area there in both Norway and in Finland. And so it's fantastic to have the opportunity to get to go and see some of their culture, get to sit down and have a meal with them. They are reindeer herders, so there are usually a lot of reindeer activities that are involved in those excursions where you get to learn about their culture, their people, their cuisine, and that's definitely a big highlight when you go there as well.
Probably eating some reindeer meat is on the itinerary.
Yeah, definitely. It's
Have
not
you ever
everybody
had
gets
it?
the opportunity to do that.
Have you had it? I'm sorry.
Mm-mm.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
Not yet. There's a lot of yets. Mm-hmm. So I would say that Iceland and Norway are our two most popular destinations if people are going to just one country. And there is plenty to do in just one country. If you wanted to stay a week or, week and a half, there's plenty to do in just one country. And other than Iceland and Norway, our next most popular trips to do are multi-country trips. And this is where people get to spend 3 to 5 days in each city, or I'm sorry, in each country. They get to see the capitals and then also expand outside of the capitals to some of the countryside and smaller areas outside of those main cities.
Is this the Northern Lights?
Yeah, these are some pictures of this. Here is a picture of the Northern Lights. On all of our winter activities, we include multiple Northern Light excursions to try to up the opportunities for you to get to see the Northern Lights. They certainly can be elusive, but worth it if you do get to catch them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next country you want to show us? What's the next most popular country? Sweden?
I would say right now, given the time of year that we're in, a lot of people are thinking about Christmas and New Year's. And I can say that a lot of people have actually been requesting Finland. Prior to working here at Discover Scandinavia Tours, I would not have had Finland on my radar really of somewhere to go. They are very humble people, and they say we are the worst sales and marketing country because we just don't like talking about ourselves. So I think that's why I hadn't heard about how wonderful it is, and it hadn't been on my radar before because they just don't have as much marketing as Iceland and some of other countries do. But right now I'm getting a lot of requests for Finland. Finland is actually the home of Santa. There's Santa's village that you can visit a little bit further north in a town called Rovaniemi. They also have the Sami culture. So when you go to Finland, you get to see the capital of Helsinki, which is this new, funky, artsy city. Lots of history, Viking history as well. And then it's time to venture outside. So you get to go up north, again to the Arctic, dog sledding, staying in those glass igloo type accommodations where you've got glass ceiling, glass walls, so you can see the Northern Lights, reindeer safaris, snowmobiling. There are a lot of fun activities to do, active activities to do in Finland. So I'd say that's next on my list.
What is this that you're showing there?
So this picture is actually a cathedral that they have in Helsinki, and it is built down below ground. So right now what you're looking at are the pews in the cathedral, the rock wall that is the surrounding walls, and then the dome that's above it. It's just a gorgeous piece of architecture, along with many others that they have there in Helsinki. So we include it on our tours. And I don't think you can see it in the picture, but Against one of the walls, there is an organ, and its pipes are built into the rock wall.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
What about summer activities there?
So summer activities and really throughout all of Scandinavia include a lot of hiking. Um, Scandinavians care a lot about the well-being of nature and preserving it. And also part of what makes them the happiest countries in the world is that they have they put a lot of value and importance on being engaged with nature. So you'll find that a lot of natives there and a lot of the activities we include in our itineraries have to do with getting out into nature, going on hikes, going on boat rides, trails through the fjords and along the archipelagos, and really getting out on the water and up in the mountains and in nature.
What about in the winter time? It probably restricts people. I'm sure they get out more than some other cultures because they're used to it. But did I hear that there are some challenges with isolation, alcoholism, that sort of thing in the wintertime in Scandinavia?
I would imagine that there could be, darker weather can dampen people's moods. I can't say that that's anything that has come up with any of our, people who've gone on our programs, from a tourism point of view. I can't say that that's something that has really affected any of the travel, from the people we've talked to. But yeah, I personally lived in England for a little while, and born and raised in California, and then I've lived the rest of my life in Florida. And I can say that moving to a cloudier climate definitely can affect the mood, people's mental health.
I've even found it here, and I've noticed it just lately with the days getting shorter and the darkness coming earlier. I'm not as inclined to go out, even to the gym last night. I was like, oh, so I'm sure that darkness affects them, but that's more cultural with the native population than anybody would be affected by if they're traveling there. So
that's right.
Where do you want to take us next on our tour?
Well, let's see. I'm going to take you to, this is one of our new itineraries, and there's quite a few fun elements that I think would be interesting for you to hear about. So this is our Mingle with Scandinavians. It's a green escorted group tour. The reason why I wanted to bring this up to you is because it really highlights living like a Scandinavian, getting the opportunity to travel as they do, and hearing about some of the different features that are available throughout Scandinavia. So this particular program, it starts off in Sweden. You start in Stockholm. This is a very short view of it, but you will take a scenic train ride from Stockholm through the heart of the country, make your way to Denmark, where you'll get to see Copenhagen. Train ride again, and stopping in some different cities along the way. Train ride through Denmark up to the most northern tip of it, where you'll actually do an overnight cruise up to Norway. Once you get to Norway, between a combination of train rides and boat rides again, you get to travel up along the coast. And so getting to see all of the different, it's like planes, trains, and automobiles. You'll have had to fly over there. You'll be taking trains throughout. There's a couple places where we include private transfers, so little car rides from your airport to your hotel, and then also the boat rides as well. You get to do all these different kinds of transportations if you're traveling like a local in Scandinavia. And we like to emphasize that because getting from A to B can just be a logistical necessity, but there's ways that you can make it an adventure and an activity in and of itself, a sightseeing opportunity. And a lot of what Scandinavia has to offer, its natural landscape, you don't want to miss. So that's why I think it's worth highlighting that if you want to go there and live like a Scandinavian for a week, it's definitely a good idea and highly accessible to use those other modes of transportation to get around. It's fun and you get to see a lot more.
And it's just a week, or are there 1 week, 2 weeks versions of this tour?
So for this small group tour, which is where you'll be joining just 12 other guests, truly a small group experience, this particular program is offered with a 15-day program. So between Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, it's a 15-day program. We do have some private programs where it would just be you and your friends or your family, whomever's in your group, that go anywhere from 13 days, 18 days, 22 days. Just depends on where you want to go and how long you want to be gone for.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So this would be like a buffet, and you're not going to get as in-depth of an experience, but you're going to get a broad experience and the scenic tour.
Certainly. And on this tour, because you're not just going to the main cities, you're stopping at some smaller, maybe more historic or more quintessential, somewhere more that locals would travel to, a little bit off the beaten path. You get a really authentic experience. And with this particular program, because it's a small group, there is a tour operator that guides you through the whole program. And then in different locations, you'll actually meet up with local guides, local experts who love their town and love showing it off. So you'll get to have them tell you all about the history and the culture and the highlights of each place.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we go to Denmark? We haven't focused on that country. And pardon my insecurity about the geography. Isn't Denmark attached to the mainland, and the rest of them are islands or paired together?
So actually, let's see. Iceland is the island all by itself.
Right.
Then you've got Norway, Sweden, and Finland are connected. And then underneath them, connected to Germany, actually, is Denmark.
Okay, so it is attached to the mainland.
Yes.
Okay.
But Denmark actually has a lot of islands, and they've connected them all by bridges. So mainland of it is connected. It's not an island, but Denmark has so many islands dotted along its coastline. So that might have led to you thinking that it was an island or not connected, because it does have a lot of small islands just scattered along the coastline there.
And is Norway, Sweden, and Finland one big island, or does it attach to Russia over there near Finland?
It is attached to Russia. Yeah, so other than Iceland itself, none of them are islands.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead with Denmark.
Yeah, so speaking of all those islands that Denmark's coastline is scattered with, the main city, the capital of Copenhagen, is actually located on an island, the island of Zealand. And then it's, very short distances, like bridge-wise, to connect it to the other islands. But it's a big island in and of itself. And so that's on Zealand. So most of our programs that start in Denmark or go to Denmark, they start in Copenhagen, the capital. Definitely worth seeing. Colorful, food-centric. That is where the heart of the new Nordic cuisine phenomenon started. This desire from the chefs in that area to get back to basics, to really connect with local produce that's seasonally grown, utilizing old cooking techniques, and then also at times introducing new cooking techniques as well to create fresh, colorful, seasonal, local food that is just phenomenal. And that new Nordic cuisine, as I mentioned, it started there in Denmark, in Copenhagen, and has spread throughout the Nordic countries. So you can find great local food all over, but the food scene in Denmark is especially rich.
Heavily focused on seafood for main courses?
Certainly, yep, because they have a lot of it there, and throughout all the different parts of countries in Scandinavia with all that coastline, you'll find quite a bit of seafood throughout.
Probably the cuisine in Copenhagen is refreshing compared to some of the salted fish diets up in rural Norway, Sweden, Finland, I would imagine.
Yeah, they could, if you go north and inland, it can get a bit more meat and potatoes. A little bit fresher on the coast, that's for sure.
Just a detour here. Isn't it interesting that the more northern the climate, the milder the food, and the more southern the climate, the spicier the food? You would think that in the Caribbean, you would think it would be opposite, because it's so hot down in near the equator, but it seems like spiciness goes with towards the hotter regions. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I did notice that, and I remember being in Thailand once, and it was summertime, and we were traveling with somebody who was from there, and she was saying that, yeah, in Thailand we eat hot foods in the summertime because it heats up like your body, and then your body says, whoa, we need to cool down. So then your body will start doing its own thing to cool down, and I imagine it's something similar with spicy food. If you heat it up from your core, from the inside with the spicy food, then your whole body will say, we need to cool down, and it'll turn on the fans and all the mechanisms to cool
and
down.
Start sweating. I've had spicy food that makes my head sweat and the whole body sweat.
Exactly.
Even in the northern US, up in Minnesota, it's all bread and potatoes and bland types of food. You would think they would want to spice up their life a little bit and get some heat going internally, but doesn't seem to be the case.
Now with the local foods, I guess that's what's good about a good thing about globalization, right? Is we can get all that different foods in all kinds of different places.
I'm detecting some real enthusiasm about the foodies in Denmark, and I'm like a little kid. Even the babies, they don't really know their environment until they put it in their mouth. So I'm that way as well. I think it's really important when you travel to eat the local foods and experiment with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Denmark actually has more Michelin star restaurants than any other one country. But even outside of, the highly the highly registered restaurants, like the Michelin star restaurants, just like, regular local places have great food all around. So if you like food, go to Denmark, you're in for a treat.
Yeah. What else would you show us about Denmark or focus on? What are these statues here?
Yeah, so well, I'll show you this here right now because I've got it up in front of me. This is a Viking ship. And I've touched on it a little bit, but throughout Scandinavia, Viking history is very prevalent. That's where they're from. And so there are a couple different spots, one of them being here in Denmark, where you can actually go and see some Viking ships that have been well preserved. There's also the Vasa Museum out in Stockholm. And there's just a couple different places where you can actually get to go and see some relics from that time period, learn about that culture. There's actually some places in Norway where they have a whole village set up. And when you go there, it's like a blast from the past where you're walking amongst Vikings and living getting to do some of the tasks they had to do. So very immersive. But you get to do learn and see some of that in Denmark as well.
How about Viking festivals? Probably all over in all those countries, they have them special festivals.
I'll bet they do, especially in the summertime, because they really make use of good summer weather. So all the hibernating that they do when they're in the winter, they spring in the opposite direction. As soon as the sun comes out, they're out. When I was there in April, we were driving through the countryside past someone's home where there was still some snow on their lawn, but the guy was out mowing the snowy grass without a t-shirt on, just a pair of shorts and shoes, because the sun was shining. So sun's out, they're out. And so in the summertime too, lots of festivals, music festivals, cultural festivals, food festivals, all kinds of activities to be out and about in the warm weather, sunny weather.
Cool.
Mhm.
So
Um,
architecture, I think, is prevalent, not all of Scandinavia, but I think Denmark focuses a lot on architecture, does it not?
They sure do. Both in the capital city and some of the other bigger cities, they've got more modern architecture. But then there's also a lot of really gorgeous and well-preserved architecture um, from cultures past. You've got medieval towns like the one there's this one here pictured with like these cobblestone streets and these beautiful old colorful buildings. They definitely like to, not colorful like Key West, pinks and greens, but they do like to keep the buildings colorful for the winter time when there's less light everywhere. Let me see if I can find some other really awesome photos to show you. Oh, we've got a statue in Copenhagen of the Little Mermaid, because Hans Christian Andersen. He's from Denmark, and a lot of beautiful stories. And here's a picture there of the colorful buildings that they have. Lots of different castles. We take people on a tour north of Copenhagen on that same island of North Zealand, to visit castles, to visit some of the palaces for the royal family. So there are some really gorgeous estates like the one pictured here on the right-hand side throughout that you can tour and walk around the grounds, walk around the gardens of. Some gorgeous historic churches as well that are centuries old. Being here in the US, we don't always have things that are, buildings and places that are that old. But over there they do. I think really most of the trips that we have in Denmark are centered in the summertime when you have those longer days. And for our winter activities, we tend to send people closer to the Arctic Circle or there above, because when people go during the winter, they want to see the Northern Lights. So not as much in Denmark during that time of year, during the winter, but certainly a lot during the summer.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. Why don't you come back, stop the screen share, come back, and let's sort of wrap up a little bit. A lot of these appear to be educationally oriented, especially that multi-day tour. So that's probably going to appeal a little more to seniors, older travelers. But the summer tours, I'm guessing, would be good family tours. Talk a little bit about, who should go when. Just break it down a little bit more.
Sure. So I can say that many of the tours that we have now have catered to the demographic that we've had traveling with us thus far, because which are usually 55 and plus. And I think that's because it's a little bit more expensive to travel to Scandinavia than some other destinations. And people who go there typically stay for a while, kind of bucket list once in a lifetime. So that's historically who's been going. And so that's who we've catered to. But tourism throughout Scandinavia is rising, and we're finding a different kind of demographic arriving. Younger people, families are coming there more often now too. And so I would say that some of the tours that I've covered have been a little bit more catered to a 55 plus crowd. But there are so many activities for families to be doing, kids activities, a lot of the winter activities children love to be involved in as well. The nature and hiking activities are great for families or more active people. So it really can cater to whatever sort of a party, you'd like to go. Though the trips that I was showing you have been geared towards more of a senior population, because that's who was looking to go before.
Because they're so focused on sustainability, I would imagine that if they can afford it, some 30-somethings and early 40-somethings that are sustainability focused might enjoy it too.
Yes, yeah, that's absolutely the case. There's a lot of ecotourism to do there, where you can learn about how they are being sustainable throughout Scandinavia, what efforts they're making. And then even if you just like to travel ethically and travel sustainably, because in Scandinavia, there's so many opportunities to get out in nature versus, doing the double-decker bus tours of a city. It's a very walkable region. The main cities are that big, so even the tourism that you do in the capital cities can be very green and sustainable too. So it's certainly popular with that crowd as well.
So you've done a great tour. I feel a little tired from all the travel. No, you've done a great overview tour for us. If people want to contact you and take advantage of your services, how can they best reach you?
Sure. So a couple ways to reach us. You can go to our website, which is Discover Scandinavia Tours.com. You can reach me by phone or email. My email address is Amy_S as in Sterlicchi at Discover Scandinavia Tours. And my phone number, our main number, which is 800-936-2814. Give that number a call, and yeah, I'll be happy to tell you more about Scandinavia.
Great. And we'll put all that down below in the show notes. So if you'd like to reach out to her, especially on how to spell Sterlicchi, which I'm sure gives everybody some problems. Okay, well, this has been great. I really appreciate the time, the tour, and it's whet my appetite. We were talking at the dinner table the other night where we most wanted to go, different ones of us. It didn't include Scandinavia, but now
maybe it will now.
Now I have a stronger vote for Scandinavia. So, and I love Amsterdam. I've been there a couple of times. So, and so I believe Denmark is probably a close in terms of look and feel as Amsterdam. So
I would say so, yeah. And I've been to Amsterdam a couple of times too, with those beautiful canals and a lot of good food there too. Yeah, I think you'd love Denmark.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Let's plan to have a renewed podcast sometime in the future and dig a little deeper. We'll dig to the next level and talk about maybe some internal tours and off the beaten path sorts of tours. So let's reach out and do that again.
That sounds great. I look forward to it. Thank you so much for having me today. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay, thank you. So thanks to Amy Sterlicchi from Discover Scandinavian Tours for joining me on the Outmarket.pro podcast. To learn more about Amy, please see the information down in the show notes. And if you like the episode, please like, subscribe, and do a thumbs up and click the notification bell. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.